Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're just going to give it 1 more minute for more people to join, and then we'll get on with it.
Fantastic, thanks.
All right. I'm mindful of the time. We only have 30 minutes for this wonderful discussion. So I think we'll go ahead, and then everybody else who wants to join us will join us as we go. So I'll start by introducing our speakers. So, quickly to give everybody a breakdown and a rundown of why we're hosting the speech. I think all of us were sad and disappointed by the minister's budget speech on Wednesday, particularly. Us in the social justice movement, a lot of people have been calling this budget very business friendly and not pro poor at all. So we have some insights, and we have a wonderful panel of people who will be helping us unpack the budget and to speak also primarily on the effect of the minister's decision to freeze the increase on the health promotion levy. Um, so my name is Zukiswa Zimela, and I'm the communications manager at the Healthy Living Alliance. We go by HEALA. Um, and so I'll introduce the speakers. We have four people who will be chatting to today. The first is Mikateko Mafuyega. Mikateko is a researcher at the SAMRC Wits Center for Health Economics and Decision Science, Priceless SA. She's an admitted legal practitioner at the High Court of South Africa and has previously held positions as a practicing legal practitioner and law lecturer. She has an LLB and LLM from the University of Pretoria, and her work at Priceless is policy and health analysis. Up next is Petronelle Kruger. Petronelle is the senior researcher at SAMRC Wits Center for Health Economics and Decision Science, Priceless SA. She's an admitted legal practitioner at the High Court of South Africa and has previously held positions as a legal researcher at the Constitutional Court of South Africa. She's passionate about using the law to promote health for all people in South Africa. We also have Professor Sue Goldstein. Professor Goldstein is a public health medicine specialist with 30 years experience working in health promotion. She's been with SAMRC Wits Center for Health Economics and Decision Science, Priceless SA, for 5 years, and is currently the COO and Deputy Director. She has a special interest in the social and commercial determinants of health. And then finally, we have Michael. Michael is a researcher at SAMRC Center for Health Economics and Decision Science, Priceless SA. Michael has research interest in health economics, healthcare financing, provider payment mechanisms, economic burden of disease, cost effectiveness analysis, and fiscal policies for health. So we have a wonderful panel today, and I just wanted to mention that at the end of the discussion, we will have a quick Q&A. So if you have some questions, please feel free to type them, and we will ask them at the end. Um, I think the first question would be to the team. What are your thoughts around the budget speech tabled by the finance minister on Wednesday?
Thanks, Zuki. I'll go first. Sue Goldstein here. I think we were really bitterly disappointed. We had already talked about since 2018, and in fact before, how important it is that the sugar tax is of a certain level, so that if the indication that we give to the public is really important. And we felt that this was a huge missed opportunity for the Minister of Finance to really, first of all, he could have got more income from this, which we desperately need as a country. But second of all, the most important is to decrease the consumption of these sugary beverages and thus decreasing NCDs.
Absolutely. And just to add, I mean, you were saying earlier that some people has been lauding the budget as pro-business, but we actually think it's pro-boss and not pro-business. It's not actually a budget that is more conducive for investment. We see that our corporate income tax has been cut by 1%. We're now 5% lower than the average in G7 countries. And just to put that in context, those are countries that laud themselves as being very capitalist and as very conservative when it comes to taxation. And we're actually beating them out on our lower tax rate is. And we also saw that even some of the other unhealthy commodities like alcohol has been increased by 4.9%, and it says it's an inflationary rate. But we know Stats SA has said that inflation is actually 7%. So overall, it's a big miss for health and actually a miss for investment, and it's pretty pro-wealth.
Yeah, and just to add on that, it was very disappointing in that it really shows that supposedly the minister or the department is not treating NCDs like the crisis that they are, especially sugar-related, NCDs. Because if you look at the causes of deaths in South Africa, NCDs are amongst the top 10 killers. So it was very disappointing that there isn't anything that is moving.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I think that's one of the things that was very disappointing for everybody in the space is that we understand that the cost of these diseases also is really high, and it puts a further burden on the fiscus. I think the second question maybe would be, I think one of the reasons the minister gave for not increasing the levy for 2 years is a difficult operating environment for the sugar industry, including climate change, the floods that happened recently, and load shedding. Do you feel like these are good enough reasons for this decision?
Well, Zikiswa, I do not think these are enough reasons for the minister to say that the HPL will not be increased, because by doing that, the minister is also admitting that the inefficiencies within the sugar industry itself should continue. And if the minister is given the opportunity for the sugar industry to continue with its inefficiencies, then we can even go on for a decade. The industry would not be efficient in its production. And therefore, the reasons were not of good basis for the minister to say that he is holding on with the tax.
Thanks, Michael. And to add on to that, I think that what's really important is that hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
The reason for not increasing the tax is actually got nothing to do with the fiscus or to do with people's health, but it's got to do with the lobbying of the industry to stop them from having to deal with any of the price increases, despite the fact that this industry has been rocked with fraud scandals over the last 5 years. It's very disturbing.
Thank you, Steve. And the tax has been in place since 2016. Yet industry continues to it. There's a feedback. I'm not sure if somebody else is muted. Um, hello?
Hi, yes, please continue.
Okay. Thank you. It's much better now. As I was saying that the tax has been in place since 2016, yet industry continues to fail in their attempt to diversify. So then my question becomes, how much longer? How much longer will people have to pay with their lives for that failure? I therefore find the reasons given to be very much aligned with industry's talking points and very insufficient.
Definitely. I think also one of the things is that people don't see necessarily the value of the HPL. South Africans are notoriously tax averse, and so anything that is about taxation and taxing doesn't garner much support from a lot of the public. And I think there are many misconceptions about the levy. It would be really great if we could perhaps discuss what people need to know about the levy and what some of the benefits offered and why we desperately need it, because I think that needs to be clarified.
So I'll start and then my colleagues will jump in. But the levy really is designed to decrease the amount of sugar in these sugary beverages. And the idea is that so the way that the levy is designed is that you're allowed up to 4 grams of sugar, and then it starts getting taxed. So the idea is that we're trying to get all the industry to decrease the amount of sugar to below 4 grams so they don't have to get taxed. So this is not a real problem. I mean, this is fine for everybody. And I just want to correct one thing, Zuki, for you. I don't think that the public are tax averse when it comes to these kinds of things. I think it's only very specific small groups of people. So for example, in South Africa, if we go to alcohol, 70% of South Africans do not drink alcohol at all. So I can't imagine that they would be upset that the tax on alcohol is increased. In fact, they would benefit because that tax can go to all sorts of social development. And I think it is similar. As soon as the people are understanding that the sugar levy is for the health benefit of the vast majority of the population, people will definitely support it.
Yeah, and just maybe to add, we've actually looked at this in a number of different ways, one of which was a media analysis. And when the tax was originally announced, the sentiments towards the tax was overwhelmingly positive. And even after a lot of discourse that we've seen in the media, the sentiment has always been predominantly positive around the tax. And if you look at who opposed the tax when it was in front of Parliament, purely just based on that, you can see that community-based organizations, the health sector, private individuals supported the tax overwhelmingly, and that the parties who opposed the tax was all for-profit companies. We even saw some support for the tax from trade unions. So that should also show you that there's this false dichotomy that's created that this is a tax that's anti-business. No, it's not. But the people who feel threatened by this tax are the corporate elite whose profits might be reduced minusculely.
Zikiswa, what I would say is that every tax has its own objective. And the main objective of the HPL is to reduce sugar consumption in the long term. So if you look at it, studies that have come out recently have shown that people have reduced their consumption of sugar sweetened beverages. Corporates are also reformulating to reduce the sugar content. So it's not about whether people like to pay the tax or they do not want to pay the tax. It's about the long-term objective and what the government wants to achieve. And so I think that the tax is a good move by the government, and it has to be sustained and reviewed in line with inflation rates.
Definitely. Thank you, guys. I mean, thanks, Sue, also for the clarification. I think also one of the things that we need to discuss is perhaps the cost then of putting this pause on, because we understand that, you know, it's big, and the numbers are staggering if people were to hear it. But perhaps we could discuss what the true cost then is to this decision by the minister.
I'll start. In 2018, over 130,000 people died from NCDs alone, which is more than the number of people who died from TB, HIV, and influenza and pneumonia combined. In effect, 29% of total deaths in 2018 were NCD related, and the numbers may rise in the future if nothing is done. So the cost is people's lives. That is the cost.
If you look at the statistics that Mekateko is giving, if you extend it, about 400 people per 100,000 population have NCDs. That is the incidence rate. That tells you that if you take every 100,000 people in South Africa, every year you are likely to find that 400 people have diabetes. Now, if you are to quantify this in the longer term, you would have about more than 2 million people who be suffering from diabetes. And the healthcare costs in treating these patients would be over R1 billion. So the question is, why do you wait for the disease to rise among the population when you can actually do something using the tax?
And then just one final thing to add and to maybe to ask what's the, you know, the cost on the other end.
Hi,
We don't
Michael.
know.
I think you've been lost.
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear us? Hello?
Zuki, can you hear us?
Hello, Zuki.
Zuki, I see you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Okay.
Maybe just say what you want to say. Just maybe.
Yeah, I can
Apparently
proceed with the
everyone
discussion.
can be heard.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, my only point I wanted to add is, so Mika's spoken about the health costs that we as South Africans face. Michael has said that there's there's an extended cost and it's going to go into a financial cost as well, a very significant expenditure cost. But on the other end of the spectrum, we have absolutely no independent studies or proof that it has cost industry anything. We have speculation and we have things based on research, and I use air quotes for that was specifically commissioned by industry. But we haven't seen any independent research that has pointed to any kind of harm to the industry. Thanks.
I think we have lost Zuki, so I will carry on in terms of the discussion in going to wrap up.
Thank you.
Right.
Zuki, can you still so you can go ahead.
Okay. So, what would we like to see?
Hi. I'm hoping everybody can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
So if you can perhaps hear me, I think the next question then would be, what are you hoping to see from government regarding the health promotion levy?
Okay, I'll start. Zuki, so our ask is simple and it remains the same. We need the tax to increase to 20%. We cannot have a situation where the tax remains stagnant for the next 2 fiscal years. It's unacceptable. So our ask is simple and it remains the same. The tax needs to increase to at least 20%.
Zuki, I'd add to that. I would like the government to be transparent in how they make these decisions and which departments are involved in making these decisions, because what we've heard through the grapevine is that it
All
was
right.
not the Department of
Awesome.
Health.
I haven't received any questions.
Suki?
I think we're losing Zuki, so maybe
Okay.
go ahead. Yeah.
All right, I'll go ahead. Just to say that we really would like some transparency around how these decisions are made and to get proper input from the Department of Health, from real experts
So
in the
you can
field,
continue.
and from, thank you, and from communities and organizations of civil society and so on, not just from the industry, which is what we understood happened this budget. Thank you.
Yeah, and then just to add, and it was framed as a compromise, and it was framed as something that should be addressed after the tax was initially discussed in 2016, was the inclusion of other sugar sweetened beverages such as juices. And Treasury was quite transparent about why it wasn't included in the original tax, and it was framed as a compromise. We have now instituted the tax is not increased. We are wondering, when are we going to start compromising in favor of South Africans' health and not always in favor of private corporations? Thanks.
Well, Zikiso, I think that the minister has another opportunity to revise the decision that was made this budget during the midterm review. So I think that the committee that worked on the budget will have to look at the figures again, look at the costs that the NCD-related diseases are putting on the fiscal space, the health costs also on the country. So looking at all these, I think that in the midterm year review, the minister has an opportunity to review the HPL upwards.
If you could hear a hooter outside, that person also is upset.
So I'm not sure if maybe we still haven't got Sugi back. So maybe what I will ask, maybe it's like you to give each one of you the opportunity to have your final words and give us like your take home in this great conversation of how do we actually protect the health of people who live in South Africa. So anyone can go ahead in terms of their
Okay.
final words and a take home.
Thank you, Zama. I'll start. My final words will be the tax does work and we need it to be increased in order to save lives.
My final words is that true wealth is health.
My final word is for the minister to go back and relook at his decision.
And my final word is for civil society to really make our voices heard so that the government understands what the importance of this tax really is to us all.
Thank you so much to all of you. And I think this is a beginning of a greater conversation in terms of how do we actually promote health in a meaningful way. And thank you for everyone who have joined us online. I'm not sure, Jill, if there was any question in the last 3-4 minutes in the chat or anything. I did not have access to that. But otherwise, if we don't have anything, I think we will be wrapping up the session. And thank you to Michael, to Sue, to Mikadego, to Petronel, for really lovely.
So I haven't received any questions. And I have to be honest, I'm running blind. So I'll hand over to my colleague Nzama to wrap it up for everyone. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Zuki. I'm sure load shedding is is playing its role in the connectivity. So I think in closing, I think HEALA will continue to advocate for the tax and for this decision really to be reversed. And we're hoping that we will push even with the members of parliament in the coming week in terms of getting the public consultation process for the expansion of the to 100% fruit juice, of the health promotion levy to 100% fruit juice. So thank you everyone for the opportunity and for listening in and for actually supporting this Twitter space. We really appreciate, and we hope and looking forward to for many of these conversations, particularly with the regulation of the front of pack warning label out. We will have more spaces like this to actually also have conversation as people who live in South Africa on how do we protect our health. So thank you very much and touch base soon. Have a good one.
Thank you for having us. Bye.